Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to the Alldus podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kelly. In today's podcast, as part of our AI in Action podcast series, I'm speaking to Rahul KM, and Rahul is the founder and CEO of Forecasty.ai. Rahul, great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Mark, for the invitation and the opportunity to join you.
Rahul, before we start talking about Forecasty.ai, could you tell me a little bit about your background and journey to now?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that question. So I'm Rahul KM, founder and CEO of Forecasty.ai. My background is in business consulting, where I worked over 10 years, primarily in the area of strategy and digitalization. First, I based out of Mumbai, then moved to London, and then now in Germany. And I work predominantly in the intersection of data science and business. Last year in 2020, we started this company called Forecasty.ai, which is basically focusing on how to make the predictions for the B2B industry and commodity businesses better.
So for people who don't know much about the commodities industry and they're a novice to this, tell us about the problem that there currently is at the moment and what's the impact of that problem and why is it worth?
That's a very good question, Mark. So first of all, let me start with the forecasting itself, why it is a challenge. So let me tell you one experience that I made as an MBA intern back in 2011 when I was doing my MBA studies in Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. There, the challenge was actually to forecast the sales of a fast-moving consumer good. Now, back then, I was looking for something which could help me to predict it because then I could solve the problem for my company back then. And back then, the solution was we use Excel and some gut feeling, and then you come up with a prediction. And fast forward 5 or 6 years, I again encountered the same problem in the company that I worked for, BASF, where they were facing exactly the same challenge, but in the commodity business, forecasting commodity prices. Because why it is important? Because commodity price fluctuations can be very much. This means that the prices moves up or down 10 to 20% within a month, for example. Now, the challenge is that most of the decisions are made with gut feeling and by using traditional Excel methods. Now, what the businesses struggle with is like having a more accurate prediction. Why? Because if you know that the price is going to move up, and if you are a commodity buyer, then you can already purchase the commodities now rather than waiting a month or two later. And in the projects that we have done with BASF, we saved over €1 million per year. And that's huge. That's huge for any business. So that's why it is very important, this forecasting and making sure that the forecasts are accurate in commodity business. Now, let me give you one more topic regarding our business. So in last year, in 2020, when we started our business, we took that project and then tried to understand whether forecasting is a big problem in the industry or not. So we started by talking to customers. We conducted a survey. We did market research. And we understood that 90% of the firms in the industry faces forecasting, not just commodity forecasting, general forecasting has a big problem. And why is that a problem? Because if they could improve this forecasting accuracy by 10 to 20%, that will result to 20 or 25% improvement in profit. And that even goes higher to 30 or 35% in commodity businesses. So imagine if you can make 35% more margins by just having more accurate forecasts than what you have. And that's where the value is, Mark.
So, Rahul, when you think about it, that is a very large saving. And depending on what type of business you're in, that's the difference between being in profitability or making a loss, between the difference between hiring people or letting them go. So the shifts that can happen for some industries can be maybe, 3 to 5 times. I think we were talking about it off air last week. to get this right is a very important thing for any business.
Absolutely, Mark. You are right to the point. I will give you one example wherein one of the commodity product prices increased or fluctuated. It came up and down 3 or 4 times. I'm talking about commodities which are specific to medical industry, where they were procuring quite a lot of medical gowns and goggles and so on and so forth. The price fluctuations were so much that some of the players in the market ended up buying the commodities at when they were at the highest price, and thereby resulting in quite a lot of loss. So you are absolutely right in saying that companies can save quite a lot of money by having the right forecast, which will help them to buy or sell at the right point in time.
So you're helping the average person who's more probably business focused have this competency that's out of the box rather than having to develop up a large skill set and hire people in just to be able to do this. Because in the world of data science, quite a bit of time is spent in doing forecasts.
Absolutely, Mark. Our solution is very simple. It is really focused on user friendliness. This means that in 4 steps, you can create a forecast. And this helps the business users who do not have much technical background to generate forecast and then make the business decision. On the other hand side, our product also enables the data science to do advanced modeling and advanced configuration for the forecasting. Because most of the data scientists also face challenges with respect to how they cater to the demands of the business units within their company, because they have tons of work to do, and forecasting is one of the topics that takes most of their time. So we help them actually.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
So tell us a little bit about the data science and the challenge and that you work around to come up with a solution.
Oh, that's a very good question, Mark. So basically, our product, or the magic of the data science, lies in basically combining data and having advanced models. And both are important, and I will tell you why in a moment. Most of the data science topics that you hear, like you have fancy methods and you come up with a great result. Now, that's not entirely true. Magic actually comes from both sides. You have to generate the data and you have to apply advanced methods, fine-tune the methods to get the right results. To give you one example, we are working with one of the biggest companies in airline industry, where we are using satellite imagery. We are collaborating with them to predict the supply of commodity products. Now, for example, if we want to predict the prices of nickel, then we have satellite images of main production sites, and we derive and generate data from that satellite images. And we use public sentiments, for example, tweets and news feeds, to augment that data together with the traditional data coming from the economic side, such as demand, supply, and the macroeconomic indicators like exchange rate. And all of these put together with advanced AI and ML models, that generates the real value. For example, the satellite imagery was pretty useful in predicting, for example, the price of nickel in our case. So as I said, the magic comes from both sides, both the data and also the AI and ML methods that we use.
Thanks, Rahul, for telling me that. So when you look at the kind of current out-of-the-box applications, this allows people to really start to understand things in a way that's simple, rather than actually getting concerned about some of the kind of complications, because the ecosystem, there's an awful lot moving at the moment. So it's changing quite rapidly. And I'm guessing with COVID, that can probably fluctuate significantly.
Absolutely. I mean, COVID has a pretty big implications on commodity markets and also business forecasting in general. For example, demands of some products went up, but whereas the other products went down. So this causes quite a lot of challenges in decision making, and millions of euros are left on the table, because companies were unable to predict. Now, with respect to COVID, an interesting point is we already published 2 papers in Nature scientific reports where we use the weather data, trying to use the temperature, UV index, precipitation, etc., to predict how the COVID would evolve. And it was published last year, and where we successfully predicted the decline of COVID By using only 2 months of data until March, we were able to predict that the COVID will come down in Europe during summer last year and will again go up in autumn. So this was one of the first times wherein somebody predicted the decline of COVID in Europe. Power of data and power of AI and ML on these traditional and alternative data, that is amazing.
Where do you see the futures of commodities going? Because surely this isn't sustainable for businesses to have to deal with this day to day.
Absolutely, Mark. That's a great question. What I see is there will be a lot of disruptions happening in commodity markets in general and also in the business forecasting in specific. First of all, there is a huge demand for AI-based decision-making tools in commodity businesses because commodity fluctuations can be large and it affects the bottom line of quite a few companies who are either purchasing or selling commodity products. And the second aspect is the AI and ML area will grow to aid the executive decisions. And why I'm saying is because if you are in commodity business, you not only buy and sell commodities, you also invest in make investment decisions, for example, in petrochemical market. And there I see quite a lot of potential in knowing in advance how the market would evolve in the next 5 to 10 years and where to make a profitable investment, more moving to the boardrooms for the executive decision making. And that's what I expect. And AI and ML, of course, will not replace the traditional decision making, but it will definitely augment it in a way that will bring more and more value to the company.
It does make a lot of sense because AI decision making as an effective business tool, it's working off the data, and there's so much information that we can take from history and being able then to say, okay, well, this is the information we have. This is our recommendations on working on it. And then it just really allows people to make decisions based on hard facts that they can actually feel more comfortable doing. When you look at Europe versus the US, do you see one market versus the other market as being maybe quicker to adopt?
The market, yes, I'm pretty sure that the market can adapt quicker to this kind of decision making because as you correctly mentioned, last year, COVID has brought in quite a lot of challenges in decision making. And this kind of made companies think traditional way of dealing with uncertainty is not the way to go. They need more data points and more decision-making power based on hard facts and hard data, augmenting their traditional decision-making. And I think, and I truly believe that's the way in which the businesses will go in the future.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. As part of the AI in Action series, I've been speaking to Rahul KM, founder and CEO of Forecasty.ai. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Mark, for a great interview.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.